a little bit different from most of the Tuskegee Airmen. I was drafted. I wasn't a volunteer. They had to come and get me. But I went in through the Selective Service Act in 1942 and was sent to Tuskegee Army Airfield for basic training. And when I arrived, it was my first indication that there were some individuals being trained to fly in combat for the United States of America. It was a little bit strange to think of people of color flying in combat because it hadn't been done before. So it was certainly a novelty, and we hoped that everything would come out all right. We didn't know anything about the how much of a problem it had been to get that far, that is, to have them open a school where people of color could be trained. Tuskegee, Alabama, of course, was possibly the worst place in the world at that time to have such a program, because it was known as a hotbed of racism and bigotry. Among the indignities that we had to endure was, for example, those of us who had families there had problems shopping, for example. If our wives wanted to buy a dress in one of the stores, they couldn't try it on. They had to take it home and hope it would fit. We also had a situation to arise during our, just after we completed, after I completed basic training, for example, where the local police didn't want our officer of the day, who was sort of like similar to a provost marshal, who was in charge of our troops. He didn't want him to wear his weapon when he would go in town to protect his men or make sure that his men were doing what they were supposed to do. The situation at one point came up where they disarmed him, and that was a calamity. We had hoped that by fighting the war, even though we were doing something that we had been told that we couldn't do, the thinking in America was, you know, that we didn't have the capability, certainly not of flying an airplane. We had hoped that things were going to be better when we got back to the States, but we found the same thing. There were two gates, one for colored and one for white. So, as a result, those of us who participated, actually we didn't realize what had been accomplished. We didn't realize that we had done anything more than anybody else had done. But when the records were made known, we found out that there were a number of things that had been accomplished that were outstanding. And of course, the achievements of the organization played a significant role in the decision to integrate the services and giving us the kind of society that we have today. Even though the other services didn't immediately integrate, they did follow suit. And after that, the schools, then society as well. And now we are able to have audiences, for example, school systems and everything else. You can't tell who is who. We were fighting a war with the idea that things would be better at home. Even though it didn't happen then, I can attest to the fact that now things are better. Now, I fully realize, certainly since I've become involved in this program, telling the Tuskegee story, it's not in the history books, and our youngsters need to know this story. That's why we now have some 45 organizations within the Tuskegee Airmen program, telling the story so that our people our youngsters will realize that our organization, the Tuskegee Airmen, played a significant role in achieving these goals. And I would like to be remembered as one who helped to tell the story.